Hey, I'm Jusko from ProbableMoney.com. In this video, we are going to look at the best credit cards here in 2025 that are available to you. We are at the beginning of the year here, and this is a time when people often resolve to up their credit card game, increase the rewards they're getting, especially if they're getting sort of paltry rewards at the moment. So this video is your guide to getting to a better place. Now, every person is different, but in surveys time and time again, when it comes to credit card holders, the vast majority of them want simplicity. They want no annual fee. They want cashback rewards. Don't want to mess around with travel miles and travel points, and they don't want to have to think about the value that they are getting from a credit card that they are paying for. Now, that is not everybody, and we will cover the other bases as well, but we are going to start from that place of simplicity, no annual fee, cashback rewards. I'm going to start with a simple 3-card lineup that I think would satisfy the vast majority of people, and if you wanted it even simpler, you could just go down to 1 card, the one that I'm going to start with, and that is, as a foundation, you should have a 2% flat cashback card. Flat meaning 2% on everything that you buy with the card. You're going to get a 2% rebate. You don't have to think about any purchasing categories or anything like that. You know you're always getting 2%. The card that I recommend here is the Wells Fargo Active Cash Visa that is going to give you that 2%. You can also get a $200 bonus potentially as a new card holder with this card, but there also are other 2% cards to consider on the market: the Citi Double Cash, the Fidelity Visa, the SoFi credit card, and there are more. In particular, the Fidelity Visa and SoFi cards do not have any foreign transaction fees, so if you use them outside of the US, you wouldn't get charged anything extra like you would with the Wells Fargo or Citi cards, although there are some small hoops, I guess you might say, with those cards as well. But regardless of which card you choose, start with that 2% flat cash back and build from there. All right, you're getting 2% cash back on everything, but let's see if we can pump up that cash back percentage on some of the key categories where people are likely to spend a lot. First of all, groceries, a big ticket item for most of us over the course of a year. Let's see if we can get 5% cash back on those grocery store purchases, and we can on the AAA Daily Advantage Visa. No annual fee, 5% back at grocery stores, and then enhanced rewards in some other categories as well. 3% at gas stations, 3% at wholesale clubs, 3% on streaming services, no foreign transaction fees. So a very nice card overall, but we especially are going to zero in on that 5% at grocery stores. Now note here, oftentimes with credit cards, if they're giving you an enhanced reward at grocery stores, usually does not include Walmart and Target. I have heard conflicting things, and it might even be true that within these chains, some of them might give you 5% and some of them may not if you are buying your grocery stores from one of those chains. So keep that in mind. But if you are doing your grocery shopping at Kroger, Albertsons, Publix, etc., you're going to get 5% there, and we'll get back to the Walmart and Target in a second. All right, we're getting 5% back on groceries, so we're getting 2% back on everything else. Let's add a third card where we could get 5% on gas purchases in particular. Oftentimes another big line item in people's budgets, although you do have the flexibility to use this card to get 5% in a different category if your budget is different. And so this is the Citi Custom Cash Card. This is a card with no annual fee. It gives you 5% cash back in the purchasing category where you spend the most each billing cycle, and there is a list of purchasing categories, gas stations being one of them, and then you also have grocery stores, restaurants, select travel, select transit, home improvement stores, fitness clubs, and there's a couple more there as well. So the play with this card is to essentially use it as just your gas card, or maybe one of those other categories. But in this case, let's say we're going to use it just for our gas station purchases. We're going to get 5% cash back on all of those gas purchases with the card, up to $500 per month, which for most people, you can probably stay under that cap. All of the other purchases that you make with the card are only going to get you 1%, which is why we are using this card as a narrow 5% only and putting just one category of purchases onto it. I'm saying gas, but you could make this your restaurant-only card, or you could make it your transit-only card, or your travel-only card, or whatever. But in my version of the 3-card lineup, you now have a card that is 2% at a base, but you're getting 5% back on your grocery store purchases, 5% back on your gas station purchases, and that might be enough for most people. Now, if you stopped right there with that 3-card lineup, you would have already significantly upped your credit card game and gotten yourself some new cardholder bonuses to boot. But if you wanted to take things just a little bit higher, there are some other credit cards that I would also mention that you might get in order to zero in on a little bit of an increase in percentages on certain purchases. The Wells Fargo Autograph Visa, no annual fee, 3% cash back in a bunch of categories here. 3% at restaurants, 3% on travel, 3% on transit, 3% on streaming services, 3% on cell phone services, 3% on gas, 1% everywhere else. A nice addition to get a little bit more on some key categories. The Blue Cash Everyday is a card that many people consider good enough to be their everyday credit card, but for our purposes, we are going to use it as a supplementary credit card, in particular for the 3% cash back it gives on online retail purchases. Other good stuff going on here as well, but it's that 3% on online purchases that we especially want to get our hands on. The Bill Rewards MasterCard needs to be mentioned here if you are a renter. It actually is not a cashback card, it is a points card, but I have to mention it because it is the only card out there on the market that is going to give you rewards for your rent payments and not charge you any transaction fees for using a credit card to make those rent payments. So if you are a renter, it is a no-brainer, and there are some other places where you can get enhanced rewards on this card as well. The Capital One Saver card was especially hot to trot when it first came out. It's not quite as vital now, but it is no annual fee, 3% cash back in a lot of good categories, and no foreign transaction fees. The Amazon Visa cards, if you are a Prime member, you could get the Prime Visa, which is going to get you 5% back on your Amazon and Whole Foods purchases. If you are not a Prime member, you still might consider the Amazon Visa, the standard Visa, that is going to give you 3% back at Amazon and on Whole Foods. The Target Circle card gives you a 5% discount on all of your Target purchases, both in-store and online. Now I'm going to lump 3 cards together here, and you will see why in a moment. The Chase Freedom Flex, the Discover It, and the US Bank Cash Plus. All of these cards are going to give you 5% cash back in certain categories. With the Chase Freedom Flex and the Discover It card, Chase and Discover are going to tell you what those 5% categories are, and they're going to change each calendar quarter. As far as the US Bank Cash Plus goes, they have a list that already is established, and you're going to choose a couple categories where you can get yourself 5% cash back, which might be the preferable way to go. But all of these are going to give you 5% cash back on certain things, and there are going to be some caps on those 5% cash back categories each quarter, so make sure you take a look at that. The US Bank Altitude Go, no annual fee. What we are zeroing in on here is the 4% cash back that you can get at restaurants. And then finally, I want to mention a card that doesn't totally fit our theme so far of no annual fee and cash back, but it's pretty close, and it addresses that Walmart issue that I mentioned earlier, where oftentimes credit cards that give you an enhanced reward on grocery store purchases will exclude Walmart. So the Shopper Cash Rewards card is a card that has no annual fee in the first year, and then a $95 annual fee will kick in every year after that. What this card does is it gives you 6% cash back at 2 retailers that you choose from a list, and you'll get that 6% back on up to $1,500 worth of purchases at those retailers combined in each calendar quarter. So over the course of the year, you could potentially get 6% back on up to $6,000 worth of purchases at 2 retailers. Now, the reason I mention this is because Walmart is one of those retailers. So if you were someone who wanted to do your grocery shopping at Walmart, you could get yourself a pretty nice cashback percentage. After the first year, you would end up paying an annual fee, but even after the annual fee, you still would be in pretty good shape. Let's say you spend $100 a week at Walmart, and that would be $5,200 over the course of a year. Even when you took that $95 annual fee that would kick in after the first year, you'd still end up getting a percentage over 4% in rewards on those Walmart purchases, and potentially at other retailers depending on how much you would spend. And then there are other things on this card that are pretty decent as well. But I mentioned it specifically for the potential to get yourself a nice reward at Walmart. So that covers what the majority of people want. No annual fee, cashback, simplicity with their cards. Now, obviously, that leaves an awful lot of other people that might be looking for something different from a credit card. In particular, you might be looking for travel reward credit cards. You might be looking for 0% offers on your new purchases with the card or on balance transfers to the card. You might be looking for a business card. You might be looking for a card for someone who is a beginner that doesn't have much of a credit history, or maybe a not so hot credit history when you've had credit in the past. Each one of those topics has so many facets that it deserves its own video. Luckily for you and for me, we've already made those videos. We've already done those niche videos on the best travel cards, the best 0% cards, the best beginner cards, the best business cards. And so I am going to put a link to those particular videos in the comments section and then also in the description of this video. All of those videos we've done within sort of like the last 3 to 6 months. A couple of them might be a little bit older, but all still highly relevant here in 2025.